Okay, hi everybody. My name is Marcel Verhey, and I'm going to be teaching today about rules. So my student here, Jesse, is going to help me brainstorm up some really good rules to remember when sailing. So Jesse, what are some really good rules to remember when sailing, but the rules that also apply to driving a car, perhaps?
You should never crash.
Never crash. It is a very important rule. Never, ever crash. Why? Because bad things happen. I have to tell you, I have crashed a boat before, and we smashed up the front part of our boat, the bow, and what happened is we almost started sinking, so we had to get towed in. It was very dangerous. Luckily we had our life jackets on, so never ever crash. It's something you never want to have to experience. Jesse, what's another really good idea to remember when sailing? A good rule.
Be alert.
Be alert. What does that mean? Well, you should always be looking around to see other boats. So maybe if there's ones coming right for you, you should maybe say something or tack or do something to get out of the way. So be alert. And can you think of any other ones?
You should always wear a life jacket.
Wear a life jacket. That is actually a rule at this yacht club here, okay? You have to wear a PFD, or wear a personal flotation. So wear, I'll write PFD. You guys know what PFD is? Personal flotation device. In other words, a life jacket. So always a good rule to remember. Okay, they're very good rules, but I'm going to tell you the top 5 rules because there is actually an entire book this thick that is dedicated to rules. And to read that all would get really dry, so I've summed them all up into 5 big rules. Like we said, never ever crash. That's my number 1 rule. Okay? So if you have boat A over here and boat B over here, and this guy does a circle over here, comes up, and this boat's just sailing down here and then it comes up. There's a spot there where they could possibly crash, right there, okay? That is a problem. So what's going to happen is they're not going to do these crazy courses, or they're just going to avoid. Never want to crash, like I said before, it happens. It's not fun, even when you have these really crazy situations. So number 1 rule, never ever crash. Number 2, starboard over port. Starboard, forward, which is our green, over port. Okay? Bit more of a visual. Starboard over port. What do I mean? Well, like you said before, we don't want to crash. But if everybody's always avoiding each other, you're never going to be able to get where you want because you're always going to be crashing into people. That's why they've created this rule. Starboard, and our starboard boat will be driven by Joe. Okay, he's down here. Nice upwind sail trim, okay? And so he's sailing up here, going for a nice sail, okay? Now, Sally also is going for a nice sail, but she's going the completely other direction, right here. And here, okay? So, what's going to happen is if Sally sails all the way up here, we're going to have a crash zone right here. Right there, okay? And so when you have a crash zone, there's a problem. So, starboard over port. Port has 2 options. Sally can either tack, so she comes up here, she does a nice tack. Now she's sailing in the same direction, and she's actually turned into starboard here. Okay? So she's sailing starboard, and there's no problem. Or, if she wants to continue here without tacking, she has the option to come down here, duck all the way behind Joe, and then continue. Okay, so Jesse, what's the number 1 rule?
Never crash.
After that?
Starboard over port.
Very good. Oh dear, dropping all my markers. The next most important rule is windward over leeward. Now Jesse, can you tell me what windward is?
The person who's closest to the wind.
That is the windward boat. What defines the windward side boat? Very close. the boat, the side of the boat that the wind comes across first. So if our wind, we'll always assume it's coming from the top of this board, going straight down. We've got a nice breeze going. So if we have two boats, there's going to be one boat here. He's going to be sailing nicely on a upwind course once again. Okay. And he's sailing along here. Okay. But now there's another boat that's been really speedy. Catches right up to here. And look who it is. It's Sally. But she's starboard. And right now, she is going to be here. See that? Now what do you see here? Jesse? What do you see happening here?
Joe is taking all Sally's wind.
Yes. And now because Joe was taking all Sally's wind, Sally can't move her boat as well as she would like to. And so now she's kind of stuck. So if she accidentally hits something or wants to head up, she is allowed to do that because of the rule, lured over windward. Lured, word, over windward, okay? Very important rule to remember. So basically, if your bottom boat, Sally here, wants to head up a little, okay? And all of a sudden the wind's coming out of the corner, there's a nice wind shift, she heads up, trimming her sail. Joe doesn't have to do that, but since Sally is there and she says head up, because she is the lured boat, Joe has to go up. Now, there is a limit as to how far you can push these boats up. Okay? If your wind is coming straight down the board, like we said before, you cannot push a boat, if you are a lured boat, into iron, so the sail is all floppy, okay? You can't do that. You're allowed to push it just before there, so the sail's still kind of full. It's still kind of full, okay? He's not on irons yet, so he can still move. It's as far as he can go, okay? So that is the third most important rule. Okay, so the next most important rule to remember is that mark roundings, which are very, very important when sailing, have a very specific set of rules. So if we have a mark, let's say down here, and one up here, okay? So you're going to sail all the way up and then all the way down, okay? So of course, you have to be sailing straight up, that doesn't really work. Okay, we tack nicely up and then you're going to go around. The problem is when mark rounding, Jesse, we have a couple of issues that can arise. Okay? So I'm just going to give you an example of what could happen, and then we'll come up with a rule that really works for this. So if we have a mark, this big black dot, it's in the water. What happens if we have two boats coming at it? So we have Joe down here and Sally over here. Jesse, which rule applies here?
Starboard over port.
Very good observation. As we've seen before, we have our ley lines right here. Of course, this is assuming that the wind is coming from the top of the course. So he's on the starboard ley line, and Sally is heading for it. Problem is, she is going to have to either tack, and then once she's here, she's going to have either duck around, something fancy, and then go around. You don't want to do that, okay? What you do want to do, however, is either just go right behind it and then tack, okay? So that's what you do here. But how about, let's say we have two boats heading for a downwind mark, right here. They're both on starboard, and they're both heading for the mark. Okay, so what's going to happen here? You're going to have one boat here, and you're going to have another boat here. Okay, so two starboard boats, both coming for this mark. Now, who has rights to it? Because they're both on starboard. Well, what's going to happen is since they are going to both have to jibe, they'll do that, But then there's an imaginary 3 boat length circle around this mark. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Now it's not to scale, okay? You have this huge thing here, okay? It comes right here, all the way down, all the way around this mark. Like that. Who has room, as the term goes, to go around this mark first? Well, this time Sally has the upper hand. She's caught up over wind. This is Sally here. This is Joe here. Sally, Joe. So, since Sally's boat is in the 3 boat length circle first, she now has to call room to alert the other boat that she has right of way. And now she is permitted enough room to sail straight down and then a nice close rounding like that. Okay? But Joe, on the other hand, now has to avoid Sally. She's coming in. Okay? But he has to give her just enough room so he can go nice and close. And now the windward-leeward rule applies. Okay? But if Joe's smart, he's actually going to come up. And if he just times it right, he's going to sneak right above his boat. That's more in racing tactics, which you'll get to if you keep sailing and following all the rules. So, how can we write out this rule? This generally applies to downwind mark roundings. But the general rule, Jesse, that we can write down is that a boat has to have 3 boat lengths to the mark and has to be the first one there. So we'll call this the 3 boat length rule, okay? And this is for mark rounding. So it doesn't matter if you're starboard or port, although starboard and port rules still apply, okay? The 3 boat length rule, so when you have a mark, Jesse, you always have to be, how many boat lengths? 3. 3 boat lengths, very good. There's one last very important rule. When you're driving the highway, Jess, and you have 2 cars, and you're going faster than the other car, but of course, you never would speed, but you're still going faster than him, who has to watch out for who? The guy who's just driving, or the guy who's going faster than the other guy and is trying to pass him? Who has to watch out?
The one who's trying to pass.
Very good. The overtaking person has to watch out for the person they're passing. Similarly, in sailing, if we have boat here, and then we have another boat here, both sailing the same course, no windward, leeward applies, no starboard, port, just 2 boats. But this boat now is going 5 knots, and this boat's going 3 knots. This boat is very fast, almost twice as fast as this boat goes. It's going to catch up. And there's 2 options now, because it can't crash, so that's no fun, because what we said before, never crash. Okay, so it can't do that. But if it goes to windward, it's going to have the point, and it's going to be slow, but he can make it. Okay, so he can do that, and then return to his original course. Or he has the option to speed up and go down below, and then slowly point. Okay, but whatever the case, he has to watch out for this boat. Jesse? Let's say this guy is going along, and then this guy comes up underneath. So now he's now sitting here, but now all of a sudden he slows down. And now this boat is to leeward of this, so the leeward-windward rule applies. But because the wind is lost, perhaps maybe this time he can't coast past. So now he's going 2.5 knots. So now he's actually going slower. So now who has to watch out?
The first boat?
The first boat, the one that originally was being passed. Why? Why does that boat have to watch out? There's 2 reasons, actually.
Because it's windward.
Very good. So first of all, this boat is windward. Sorry. And secondly?
It's going faster.
It's going faster. So if you're faster, you watch out for the little guys, because they can't If you're going fast and this guy is going slow, he tries to turn. If you're going fast, you have to watch out for him. You'll smack him. Same thing with riding your bike or something else like that. So always remember, the faster boat always watches out for the slower boat. Okay? And so, Jesse, I want you to come up here and write down 2 rules that you remember clearly. And give me an example of each.
Okay. There's starboard over port.
Okay, so just draw an example.
One boat coming here,
Okay?
right? He's sailing along.
Okay?
And another boat over here, sailing along like this.
Okay?
And
Who has to watch out for who?
this guy has to either tack and go like that,
Okay.
or he has to go like this and go
All
around.
the way around. Very good. So that is a very important rule. Starboard over port, one of the most commonly used, I might say.
So always remember the 5 most important rules when sailing. Number 1, never ever crash. It's not a good story. Number 2, always give way to the starboard boat. Starboard over port. Remember that. Number 3, leeward over windward. The boat's below you, give them some room. Number 3, mark roundings. If you're inside that 3 boat length circle first, you have room. And lastly, the overtaking boat must keep clear. So remember all those rules and you'll get quite a ways.